From each character's magical awakening and all the RPG mechanics it opens, to the social sim elements that feed into how you interact with the world, Metaphor ReFantazio is clearly adopting the Persona formula, but it's doing so for something seemingly bigger in scope from both a gameplay and storytelling perspective. After playing about 5 hours of Atlus's upcoming RPG, it's extremely apparent how it's leveraging the strengths of its previous games to think outside the confines of traditional fantasy and create something wholly unique. And as much as I love Persona, it's about damn time we've had a game of this style that goes beyond the classroom walls and halls of high school. No matter which way you cut it, Metaphor is a politically charged story, not just in the concept of being the main character who is striving to win an election to be the next king. Having played the opening hours, it boldly establishes the social dynamics of its medieval fantasy setting, the Kingdom of Uchronia. It's a grim, hostile world outside of the towns and city walls where outlaws and monsters are always seeking prey. And even within its capital, its society rife with classism and discrimination shows that nowhere is truly safe. Metaphor makes this clear as soon as you reach the royal capital in the opening hours, showcasing how poverty, racism, and militarism dictate life across the kingdom.
An elder? I thought your kind was long gone.
The protagonist, who has more voice lines this time, is an Elda, a tribe or race that presents as regularly human. They're a rare sight and are treated with disdain. The elven Rusant and horned Clamar are more commonly accepted, while the hedonistic cat-like Paripus live on the fringes of society. The tribal dynamics set a tone for a story that seems to dive into injustice as a major theme. But the main character isn't just any young Elda. He's best friends with the crown prince, who's essentially in a coma after a violent coup attempt from years ago. This relationship is revealed early on, which begs the question of what the protagonist's role and motivations really are as he becomes a serious candidate in the kingdom-wide election process.
Everything's pretty standard.
Significant parts of this opening use beautiful anime-style cutscenes, and I didn't mind setting the controller down for long periods because these show an elevated level of production chops compared to Atlus's previous games. That extends to Metaphor's stunning aesthetic, bringing the kind of flash and fashion you expect from Persona while blending in the harshness of a brutal medieval world.
What a finale! Keep your energy up, everyone!
However, I wasn't entirely sold on Metaphor in the opening hours. It's visually striking with a captivating setup, but it's delivered in a fairly by-the-numbers sequence of events as it tries to build a foundation of its brand new world. I started to see the vision once I got deeper into the preview demo though. After signing up as a foot soldier in the army and getting sent off to a dangerous military operation, you're paired with a Clamar named Stroll, and your fairy companion Gallica reminds you that your mission is to meet with someone who's on the inside and has vital information for your true goal. Not much is explained at first, but as I got through the introductory dungeon, I saw more of Metaphor's pieces fall into place. I began to see how corruption from within the kingdom exploits people who are then used as political pawns. I forged an early bond with Stroll, who's a well-meaning noble willing to put his life on the line for what's right. But I also questioned why all the bosses of this world are deranged amalgamations of humans with monikers that harken to our real world. So much of Metaphor remains a mystery, but I was quickly convinced that its world warrants a journey upwards of 80+ hours. And one thing I was sure of was that it still has that badass edge expected from an Atlus RPG.
Power awaits thy command. The time has come to awaken the hero within.
Just like in Persona, each party member in Metaphor has an adrenaline-induced awakening that opens them up to supernatural powers, literally ripping their hearts out to transform into beastly figures. In battle, they transform into what are called archetypes when casting spells or using certain types of attacks. Mechanically speaking, they work more like RPG classes than they do the Pokemon-like personas or demons from Shin Megami Tensei. And instead of the Velvet Room or World of Shadows where you build a roster for combat, Metaphor has what's called Academia, which serves a similar purpose, where you assign and customize archetypes for each party member.
A world with no need for that abstract dominion we know as magic.
When the preview demo fast-forwarded to much further into the story, the archetype mechanics opened up significantly. Every character can unlock and spec into multiple archetypes, a few of which included the spell-focused mage, the swift trickster of thief, the more balanced seeker, and the tank-like warrior. While I didn't get to experience how deep it goes, I saw the various branches of archetypes archetypes, which also hinted at how they'll evolve over the course of the game. Each of these come with their own stats that will dictate combat roles, but also come with specific elemental affinities and spells, so party composition is still a fundamental part of Metaphor, much in the same vein as a Persona or SMT.
I call upon royal power within!
Metaphor's turn-based RPG combat leans heavier into SMT with the press turn system, where you earn extra actions for each turn phase, as opposed to Persona's one more and baton pass system. While naming conventions for certain elemental abilities may have changed, the flow is very familiar since you're still targeting enemy weaknesses to get through battles effectively. A new wrinkle I love, however, is how you cast multi-target spells. In Metaphor, synthesis attacks consume 2 turn icons and combine the elemental powers of 2 characters in order to execute a multi-target spell. It made me think more strategically about when I should use these kinds of abilities, but it's also a clever rework since I no longer have to dedicate a character's limited action slots to these types of spells.
Let my power support you!
Another smart way Metaphor rethinks the formula is in how you initiate combat. There's a real-time action element where you attack enemies in the dungeon to gain a turn advantage and damage foes before jumping into the turn-based battles. It's a bit more involved than stealthy ambushes in Persona 5, and instead of repeatedly churning through low-level enemies, you can reach a point where you can just hack and slash through the fodder entirely. However, enemies fight back in the overworld, so you have to approach them carefully and dodge their attacks, lest you yourself get ambushed and be put at a severe disadvantage. While the action element isn't intended to be in-depth and is more of a preface to full battles, it improves pacing by having a more sensible flow between exploration and combat.
We stand together!
When I jumped later into the story, I was able to explore the humble town of Martira and experience how the day-night cycle and calendar systems work. Spending time to understand the cultures of the world and the different peoples who embody them to build bonds is a revamp of the confidant social link mechanic, and taking part in certain activities boosts social stats to let you access new interactions or quests. There's still a countdown of days until a major story event happens, requiring you to progress in the main quest at an appropriate pace and make tough decisions about how you spend your limited time in each phase of your days, as is Persona tradition. But from a conceptual level, winning the hearts and minds of seemingly disparate peoples amid political turmoil while carrying out your own personal mission fits this gameplay framework incredibly well.
The minority tribes face walls and barriers everywhere they look in society.
Time management isn't just about how you spend parts of your days either. Taking expeditions for quests to far-off locations across the kingdom consumes multiple days, pushing you to plan ahead and think about what's worth doing. During expeditions on your Gauntlet Runner, the ground-based ship that works like a mobile headquarters, you can access unique interactions with characters while in transit. So it's not like you're simply burning days off of a calendar to get somewhere. I got to know Hulkenberg better through her love of tabletop games, and I cooked with Stroll to get closer to him while getting healing items. Side quests themselves involve battling through curated dungeons and bosses, and also present supplementary story content you wouldn't see from the main quest alone. Metaphor is said to be packed with so much side content that the development team said you won't be able to complete it all in one playthrough.
The party at last arrives in the village of Comero, a small farming settlement southeast of Martira.
My main takeaway after playing 5 hours of Metaphor ReFantazio proved what I'd been thinking for years since I fell in love with Persona, that the series' foundation could reach new heights if used in a different context, and the context here is a political fantasy drama. The daily structure and social sim mechanics built around a turn-based RPG are so familiar, but have been revamped in several small yet impactful ways, and it's shaping up to be a brilliant way of exploring an entirely new and fascinating fiction in the comfort of a framework I already know and love.
At the ready!
Aside from the bold new soundtrack from longtime Atlus composer Shoji Meguro, who's now wielding classical orchestras and a Latin-style choir, Metaphor's lasting impact will be in how its political drama comes together. A preview demo of a lengthy RPG isn't going to show that, of course, but it is showing promise with characters who make great first impressions, narrative themes that are clearly inspired by the problems we face in our real world, and questions I'm eager to seek answers to. It won't be long until we get those answers, because Metaphor ReFantazio launches on October 11th this year for Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 4 and 5, and PC. And for more on Metaphor, don't miss our 16-minute gameplay video, as well as the gameplay overview showcase. And for everything else in the world of gaming, stick with IGN.